So, hey, everybody, I'm so glad you're here to be speaking with me and Bradley here. Um, this is Bradley Schnitzer. He started out as an accountant, someone who spent his days making sense of numbers. But it turns out the skill that served him best wasn't the spreadsheets, it was the words. He walked away from accounting to build a freelance writing career from scratch. And today he helps direct to consumer e commerce brands stop hemorrhaging customers after the first sale, using email to turn one time buyers into loyal repeat customers, something we all would love to have. And he writes about retention, copywriting, and the business of being self employed on his Substack. And he's one of those rare people who can tell you why a piece of copy works, not just that it does. So let's welcome Bradley. So glad to have you here, Bradley.
Yeah, glad to be here. Excited to talk about the topic.
Yeah. So we're going to be talking about how we use AI in our business. And Bradley actually wrote a really interesting article on the 8 ways that he uses AI in his business, which included prompts. So I thought, oh, that'd be a great, jumping off point to talk about that, because a lot of people are curious about how to use it. Some people don't know the best ways to use it. Some people are worried that if they use it for certain things, they'll sound like a robot. But what are some of your favorite ways to use AI?
So I'll say personal and business. I'll start with business first because it's a little narrower. So business, I actually use it for a few different things. Obviously, I use it when doing the actual copywriting. So when I'm writing copy for clients, it's basically like a copywriting assistant at this point. It does a lot of it'll do a lot of the grunt work, like the kind of the brute, just like arranging the letters on the page, basically. But I'm there doing the creative direction almost, and the strategy, things like that. But it's not just the copywriting. It's also, it'll help me analyze. Like I just actually today, we got some email, or I got some data on some emails back from a client, and I basically plugged in the copy, plugged in the numbers, and I said, analyze why these were the lowest performing emails, basically, and what we could do to do better. And I was using Claude for that specific instance, and it gave me some pointers on all of the things. I looked, like I still, I verify that it's not, that it actually looked at the email. Because sometimes you might forget to like give it a specific piece of information, and it might not actually, like it might just give you generic answers rather than looking at the specific thing you told it to review. And so it gave me some interesting, useful tidbits that I then relayed back to the client. But that's an example of like just beyond the writing, it helped me analyze why certain emails might not have performed well. It has also helped me come up with offer ideas, or offer structure for promotions for clients. Like when we're running like like Black Friday is a good example, but like I had a client who was in the golf space, and there was I can't remember which tournament it was, Augusta, I think. And it helped me plan out an offer that basically items that matched like the items that matched the holes on the course. And it helped me like put those together. So we created a really cool offer that was themed, not just on the sale itself, but also the actual event that we were running the sale, for, which was that golf tournament. So strategy and offer structure and things like that as well. And then behind the scenes, like internally in my own business, it's helped me not just brainstorm ideas but like outline lead magnets and products and whatnot. Or I'll take like a partial outline, like here are some ideas I have for this lead magnet. Here's what I think should be included. Look over this, spot check, see if there's anything that should be included in here. Give me pushback, tell me if this should or should not be included, all these kinds of things. So it's helped me with lead magnet and product development. And also like there's a lot of miscellaneous things. Like it helped me navigate setting up ThriveCart and hooking ThriveCart up with other software. It helped me navigate setting up like sales tax stuff for when I first started selling products. So like it helped me like navigate doing that, because government websites are notoriously like impossible to figure out and like always like 20 years behind. So it helped me with that when I was setting that up with my state and all that. So there's a whole smattering of stuff there. But and also I should say blog posts. I actually used it to generate a bunch of blog post ideas based on topic buckets and whatnot that I like to talk about, and just put it in like a grid for me so that I can just look and be like, all right, I want to write a blog post about this topic today, and I'll just look at it and be like, I'll take that and I'll go to AI and I'll ask it to help me like outline based on that, and I'll bring my own ideas again, but then AI helps me kind of iron it out into a solid outline. So there's a whole lot there, and then I could spend like another hour and a half talking about all the different things I've used it for, like personal matters too. But I'll say like just one or two real quick. So one, I actually replied to you in Substack notes about this, but it built a home shopping calculator. So I like to, I'm not really like super in the market for home right now, but I like to kind of browse Zillow every so often and see what's going on. But when you're doing that, you have to open a property tax calculator. You have to find out homeowners insurance rates for like your state or your area or whatever. You have to do interest, this, that, and the next thing. And the maintenance buffer, like you want to save like what, 1 to 3% a year of the value for maintenance. It's just like a rule of thumb. I threw all that information for a house into ChatGPT, and then it just spit out all the numbers I wanted, including like the total I would have to allocate to housing, all things considered. And then it asked me if I wanted it to build a calculator for that. I'm like, sure, okay. And then it sat there for a few minutes and did the little spinny wheel, and then suddenly it popped out a spreadsheet like that. Like a whole spreadsheet. So I downloaded it, imported it into Google Sheets, and now it has like, it's got nice and color coded. It's got like a nice, pretty looking design, and it even has like disclaimers like these are just estimates, blah 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 blah. Like it has all that. So now I don't have to open like 4 different calculators and stuff. I just have to plug all the numbers in there and run it. I can just run a bunch of different scenarios instantly. So that's like one example of that. And then, oh yeah, it also recently helped me help me figure out how to move as inexpensively as possible, because I'm moving to another unit in my apartment building, and it helped me like iron that out and figure out like how much it's going to cost and all that stuff. So, yeah, I mean, there's like so many different things I can say, but those are a few that have come to mind recently.
Got it. Now, I want to come back to something that I saw on your LinkedIn. I believe it was your LinkedIn profile. It said, because you talked about using it for writing, and I think there's a lot of people who think, oh, they could use it to replace writers, right? But you said AI won't make you a better writer if you aren't one to begin with. Learn the craft first. Can you kind of unpack that a little bit?
Yeah. So there's a bit of a philosophical point to this, and there's probably philosophy of how AI and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, to me, an LLM, it can't really like think. It can't even, when it writes good, it can't even write in a sense. It can only arrange letters on a screen. But you cannot know for sure that copy is good if you don't know that copy is good. Like it can spit out based on it has the formula stored up. It's trained on a bunch of different data and all that stuff. But it does not have like judgment. It doesn't have things like that. So if I were a beginner copywriter and I just said like, write me a really good sales letter that would sell, I don't know, like this water bottle or something, it would write a good sales letter as defined by a bunch of what's the word? Like cold rational, like formulas and metrics and stuff. Like it can't, it's not human. It can't like actually determine that it is good. There's not it doesn't have a mind. It's essentially a bunch of formulas, just, probabilistically arranging letters based on what, a bunch of formulas. Right. So, it's like if I were to have if I were a beginner copywriter and someone just like handed me a piece of copy and told me, is this good or is this not good? Just like, I don't know where it came from. I don't know who wrote it. They just handed me a bunch of copy and I'm a beginner copywriter. How do I know if it's good? I'm a beginner copywriter. That's kind of the same thing here. How do I know that just because I gave it a bunch of information, it spit something out? I don't know that because I don't have the experience to know that at the end of the day. If you think about it, it's the same reason why in order to be like a copy chief, to oversee copywriters, you have to have done it a lot first, because you have no idea if, a beginner copywriter could, on a total fluke, write a really good sales letter or piece of email copy or anything else, or an ad or something that just converts really well. But it could be just complete luck. They just do it once. And then you're not going to be, oh yeah, let's just like let them do whatever they want. No, because the next one is probably going to flop, because that's, let's see, I'm going to try to avoid getting too philosophical here, but Plato talks about knowledge versus right opinion and things like that. And so a beginner copywriter does that. They don't have knowledge of what makes good copy. They happen to have the right for lack of a better word, the right opinion at the time. They got lucky.
Mhm.
They happened to align what they did with what's good, but they don't know that. AI is basically the same way, but it can never like know in the sense that a human can know. So
Right.
that's what, like, when you see lots of like AI slop everywhere that just like sounds like really, really, that's what I'm talking about. It's still ultimately like a human wrote it. It's just their standard for whether or not it was good copy is this. The only standard was AI. Like the only standard was that it was a complete piece of copy. Not there was no like quality judgment applied to it. So
Right.
if you have that, the AI slop, like that's why that exists, because the people they're either just not checking or they don't understand the principles of good copy and persuasion.
Right.
And so they just think that whatever the AI spits out is good. Now, I've had AI write complete emails for me that required only very minor refinements, like maybe moving a
Mhm.
word around or maybe nothing at all in some cases. But again, that doesn't happen every time. Again, it's like it happens once. That's almost like a fluke. Usually, you still need to verify and check, because usually there's still going to be the need to make some corrections, or like what I found with Claude is like Claude has been pretty good at writing, but sometimes it adds some throat clearing at the beginning where
Mm.
like 2 or 3 sentences that that just dilute the point and delay the point, and you can cut them and actually ends up sounding just as good or better.
Right.
So there's almost always like some level of edit, so you can't just like click a button and then just like absentmindedly use whatever comes out. That's why you need to understand copy. If to understand copy, that way you can look at the output and determine what is good and what needs to be changed. So
Right.
kind of like with a junior copywriter or something.
Yeah, and I would say if I were to summarize all that, it's taste. Your taste has to get educated as a
Yeah.
human. The AI does not have taste, and one of the things I see with AI is overuse of copywriting tools.
Yeah.
Too many, like I've seen great copywriters, I've looked at stuff going back 100 years. They'll use EM dashes, but they don't use 3 in 1 paragraph.
Yeah.
They'll use it for like emphasis or drama. And I've seen the same thing. You go into Moby Dick, by the second page, you've seen 2 EM dashes, but they aren't used constantly. They're only used, judiciously. AI doesn't have the taste to say, well, this is a really good copywriting technique. This is a good writing technique. We shouldn't use it too much. It's only good when it's used a tiny bit. It's not good when it's used a lot, or using triples. It's that
Oh
blank,
yeah.
blank, blank. It's this, and this. But if you keep doing that, it starts to sound weird and robotic. But if you do it every once in a while for emphasis, then it's like, ooh, that's really cool. So that's one of the things about copywriting that I've seen is if the shorter the piece of copy, the more likely it gets it all right, because there's not enough words to make all these overuse of
Yeah.
techniques. Like it's not X, it's Y. If you say it's not X, it's Y 3 or 4 times, it's not this, it's that. You're like, whoa, that's starting to sound weird now. And so that's what I think is why you need a good copywriter and a good writer there to be able to spot when the AI does it. Because then they can say, okay, you know what, this is mostly good, but we have to fix these things. These things don't belong. And that's why I think people are still going to need copywriters. But there's another element too, which is the positioning of the entire thing. Because you mentioned using it to brainstorm the angles for the campaign. Well, you can use it to help you brainstorm. You can say, here's what I'm thinking of. Do you have other ideas? Which one should it choose? I'll say, what do you recommend? And I'm like, actually, no.
Yeah. Yeah. Same here.
Just,
Yeah.
I'm like, no, that doesn't really fit. But I see why that could fit if the situation were slightly different, but not in this situation. So even if you ask it for a recommendation, sometimes its recommendations are good, sometimes not. And so that's why you are required. Yeah, awesome. Awesome. That is really cool. Now, you said it speeds up the things that take the longest. What are the parts of copywriting that took the longest in the past?
Well, I wouldn't say it's not necessarily like the longest, but it's the parts that they're like the least efficient in terms of like, I don't know how to explain, but like for example, like if you think about it, when you're physically typing something out, that is simply, or writing, that is simply putting arbitrary symbols on a piece of paper or on the screen.
Mhm.
That's not technical, although it happens at almost the same time. I want to say that's not necessarily the same activity as mentally going, okay, I like this hook because, thinking about, I like this angle for this email. I like this hook, we're going to tell the story. Like, you're simply just like, if I divorce those two activities entirely, I can just like blindly just look away and just mash the keyboard and random letters come out, but it doesn't mean anything. Those are kind of like two activities going together at once. I like to think of it as AI is handling, in a sense, the letter arrangement function. It's kind of like doing it. It's kind of like moving the stages around. So we're like, you're like thinking and writing, or putting the symbols down at the same time, and then later you edit. In this case, it's almost like, and there's still a little bit of that because you have to prompt it. You have to tell it, do this, 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 and this, almost like you're programming it in a sense. But then the letter arrangement portion has been like outsourced in a sense. So like the AI, based on probabilities and all that complicated formulas it uses, manages to put those letters together into something that has, is coherent. And then from there, you can look at it and go, this is good, this is not good, edit, all that kind of stuff, and tell it to make fixes or do the fixes yourself. But that part where it's the physical getting it out onto the paper, that's like what it takes off your plate, essentially, like the physical like labor of doing that, so to speak. So because like we were saying earlier, it can't do really the strategy and direction and these kinds of things that really make up, that differentiate writing as we would understand it from like physically typing out letters on a screen, or like if I was just randomly scribbling letters on a piece of paper versus using my mind to determine the direction of the story I'm writing out, or the letter I'm writing out, or whatever. And so it takes away essentially like another manual task in a sense. Some people think that like having it do that for you is like taking the writing away from you. And I guess there's a certain element, because being able to have the idea in your head and do it and type it at the same time is probably a little bit different than like having the idea, typing out a prompt, and having it do it for you. But it's still ultimately like you are the one determining clarity, or sorry, strategy and direction and these kinds of things. So, like, I don't know, if like a famous author, they could have like ChatGPT like write a whole book for them, but then only that author's mind can determine that, yes, this is the vision I have for this book. Like I say Dostoevsky because it's the most recent big fiction book that stuck in my head, Brothers Karamazov. I'm like, if Dostoevsky was around today, honestly, I don't think he would be in favor, but like he could use it, but it's him who decides that, yes, this is my vision for this story, right? If I try to just have ChatGPT, if I went in, write me a short story in Dostoevsky style, right? Like it would be Dostoevsky style, but it's not. Yeah. It would be Dostoevsky style, but it would not be a Dostoevsky because it's not his unique mind, right? It would be a piece by Bradley Schnitzer in the style of, just like I could do it by hand. I could write a Dostoevsky kind of like myself by hand if I wanted to, or I could try, right? Like I probably wouldn't be very good at it, but I could try, but it would not be him,
right,
because it's not his mind. And so he, at the end of the day, the kind of like the low level task is the letter arrangement. That's how I like to think of it. The arrangement of these arbitrary symbols we call letters, that happen to correspond to sounds we make with our mouth, or sounds we, interpret with our mind when people are talking to us. We read those and we kind of make those sounds, and that whole thing, there's a little bit of philosophy and psychology here, but it's like the most manual part of the process. Right. Ultimately, you are still strategy, direction, you still have the vision that the AI cannot really have the vision.
Right, exactly. And here's something interesting that it's just kind of an aside from what you're saying, because you brought in Dostoevsky. One of the things I've noticed is good copywriters are readers. So part of what helps us develop that taste is reading, and not just reading the latest stuff of today, but they'll read Shakespeare, or they read Dostoevsky, or they read other things. We actually like words, and we have respect for words. And so that's one of the reasons why, like, when I talk to copywriters or serious copywriters, they always seem to know some random stuff, or stuff that's from older literature and writing. And one of my mentors, Sean D'Souza, I mean, he had read the all the really old copywriting books, like Scientific Advertising and other books like that. Some of the books that were written, around the turn of the century. So, which are just different style, but it's just you end up learning something from them. So, but you learn stuff from literature because cadence and rhythm is so important in copywriting, and so important that you can grasp that and see that and value that. So that's really cool. Now, there was something you said that I think relates to what you were talking about, how it does the letter arrangement, right? You
Mhm.
talked about using AI to verbally vomit out ideas
Yeah.
and then have AI organize it. So can you walk us through like what that would look like in practice?
So I think probably Claude on the app has a speech to text. For some reason, that's the one downside with Claude is on the desktop there is no microphone button. There's a voice mode where it'll talk to you, like it'll have this weird kind of conversational like emotion to it. But like I,
Mhm,
I like to do it where it's just speak voice and then it just
mhm.
produces text. So I have to do a what is it Windows H and it does like Windows's kind of crappy version of voice to text. But I will sometimes on my phone even, which is nice. You can do this on the go. On my phone, I'll just hit voice to text and I'll just kind of like since it's not a conversation with the person, you don't have to like go back and forth. You can just say all your ideas on something. And I'm a little wordy sometimes, and maybe you've noticed a little wordy with how I talk, which is why
Mhm.
writing it allows me to go back and clean those things up. But with things like ChatGPT or Claude, I just click that little microphone button, and then I just try to exhaust all of my thoughts on the idea just out into the thing. And sometimes it's interesting while I'm doing that. If it's like I'm like you were talking about earlier, like when you're like you ask it for a recommendation, and sometimes you're like, no, actually, I think the other one's better. You go against it. While I'm doing the voice to text, sometimes if I'm like trying to figure out like which direction to take on something, just by verbalizing it, and sometimes before AI, I would do this just by walking back and forth, kind of like talking to myself through like something like that. It's kind of like the same thing. It's like by the time I get to the end, I've like decided, so let's see, talking about this out loud made me realize that this choice actually isn't the right choice and this one is. So that'll help, but I'll still have it like give me the response anyways. Like once you're done talking, I think ChatGPT has like a 10-minute time limit, and sometimes I hit that time limit. But it has 10 minutes of it can record 10 minutes, and then you can keep recording. But um, hit that time limit or whatever, hit input, and then I'll still want its feedback anyways, just in case. But like when I was talking about, or when I was trying to plan, let's see, I think like revamping one of my courses or something, I like had some ideas for like what I wanted to put in it, and then I would be saying those, and also other ideas started to flood into my mind as I was verbalizing to the AI these ideas. So I got it all there, all into the AI, and then it was able to, there was more, there was, I nothing was like left out. Whereas if you're physically typing it out, you know, things might start to slip. I've noticed like that's why people take like voice notes, right? Like you're out on a
Mhm.
walk and I like to take long walks. The best ideas hit you when you're just out there, and obviously you don't want to be like listening to something on your phone, but like I like to have my phone on me so I can, oh, that's a great idea, I'm going to record it. But ChatGPT in a sense almost acts like one of those it's like a voice note thing kind of, but then
Mhm.
it'll also give you feedback there too. So it's like a voice note thing that gives you feedback. Now it's going to be recorded in text form, so you'll have to read it again later, but it's it's useful for that as well. So it's really good for like coming up with more ideas, or like just while you're midway through, you're like, oh, you've already decided which idea you want to take, and just like recording your ideas, like, and getting feedback. Like I had an idea for a course like hit me at like I think like 10 p.m. last night or the night before, and I was like, oh, and I pulled over open ChatGPT for it before I could forget about it, and just started talking all my ideas into it. And now it's saved in there, so I can go back later. I don't have to like, and not just it, but ChatGPT's feedback on ideas for it, so I can go
Right.
back later and have all that saved somewhere. So very useful for that.
Yeah, it is amazing because yeah, you can take that, all those thoughts and then get that feedback, which is really cool, and say, hey, what do you think of this? And one of the things that I've done sometimes, which I learned from Ev Chapman, is just have it ask me 5 questions about it. And I'm really surprised at how insightful some of the questions are. I'll say ask one question at a time, and I didn't tell it what type of questions to ask, but it ended up asking me really good questions. Or maybe that's my bias saying it's really good questions, but I'm like, sometimes I'm like, wow, I never thought of that angle to think about it from. And it's so interesting because unlike, before we had these things, I used, tools that would, record my voice, and and then the AI ones that transcribe it were even better, because then I could easily find all my notes, that I made. Um, and then I started saying, let me take some of these things and put them into Claude or put them in the Chat GPT and have it ask me more questions to flesh it out even more. And it really does something. It really produces some interesting insights. So yeah, I love that, that you use it that way. Yeah, awesome, awesome. All right. Now, your business is as a copywriter, right? So if people wanted to have, copy written by you, I mean, where do they go? How do they find out about your services?
Well, I mean, my website is bradleyschnitzer.com, and that's, I mean, I don't know. I guess if you see my name on Substack, it's that.com, no space or anything, bradleyschnitzer.com. Some people don't know how to spell my last name, which is understandable, but if you don't, it's on, my full name is on Substack. But there, I also do have, obviously, my Substack, where I publish a weekly article about email marketing, copywriting, retention, sometimes like that blog post we were talking about at the beginning, sometimes AI related stuff. So you can subscribe to my Substack if you want those. And I also send you my free ebook when you do that. I'm actually, there's a chance to get the old ebook. I'm getting close to launching a new free ebook, and I'm going to send to my whole list as well. And then also use as as another freebie for getting on my list. And then, so website, Substack, you can also find me on LinkedIn, Bradley Schnitzer, if you want to. What others are there? Substack, website, LinkedIn. I think just those three, right? Yeah. And I guess, if you want to talk more, you can DM me on Substack. That's probably the easiest way to reach me. I don't want to, have you just like send me an email if you don't want to, because I know that can feel a little weird. So you can just like DM me on Substack. I like getting DMs from people and hanging out with people on Substack. So yeah.
Awesome, awesome. And I did put your link to your site there because people won't necessarily know how to spell it.
Yeah. Thank you.
And a link to your LinkedIn as well, because it's always good to follow people on LinkedIn nowadays. Yeah, awesome. Well, before we sign off, do you have anything that you want to share, or anything that maybe you think would be good to say before you go, or before we go?
Yeah, one quick thing. If you are like a little overwhelmed about all the AI stuff and you're not sure, like literally, like the way I started using it now, I did start using it a few years ago, but just like play around with it and just see what it can do. Like you don't have to like necessarily, like there's people constantly talking about the latest tools and the latest this and that. And sometimes I'm like, I feel like I'm way behind, but then there are people ahead of me who they themselves say they feel like they're way behind. A lot of that stuff probably isn't necessary. A lot of those tools are probably for really big companies or whatever anyways, or people who have like a bazillion followers. Like just playing around with ChatGPT or Claude or these kinds of things, and just seeing what it can do. And just like the way I developed my writing process was very organic. So it wasn't, I didn't like figure it out ahead of time. I just worked with ChatGPT and eventually got into a process that helps me write with it. Same with a lot of other things. Just play around with them, and you'll find they can do a lot of cool things. So yeah.
I love that, because that is what I tell people too. I say, what can it do for you? I say, well, just play with it and see what happens. There is another slightly more structured approach that I will give people though too. I'll say, write out your list of things that you're going to do today or over the next couple of days. Give it to AI and ask it how it could help you.
Oh yeah, that's a good one too.
Because it's the only tool. Jensen Huang, the guy who runs NVIDIA, he was like, this is the only tool that can teach you how to use it itself. So either do whatever floats your boat. Play with it, like you're talking about, or ask AI how it can help you with all those things that you've got doing. Either way, you're doing something good, but just take a spirit of play to it, because we're in the Wild West. And like you're saying, there's so many people screaming for attention, saying this is the new thing and this is the new thing. And of course, if they're on social media, attention is the currency. But that doesn't mean you have to constantly jump around. You just play in your field and slowly grow from there. And like you said, organically develop your process. No one's sat there and told you, here's how to use it for copywriting. You just played around and used it over time. Yeah, awesome. Fantastic. Well, thank you for coming on here today, Bradley. I think a lot of people gained a lot of value from it. Put some hearts, everybody, if you were happy with what Bradley shared with us. So anyhow, awesome. Well, thank you so much. I hope we will stay in touch. Oh, look, a bunch of hearts are coming in. Way to go. Oh, Flora just joined at the end. We're signing off, Flora. But well, the replay, we'll have the replay come in later. Anyway, thank you so much, Bradley, and I really appreciate your time. And we'll hopefully stay in contact.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks for having me.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye, all.